In the year 2000, a film starring Julia Roberts made a little-known contaminant a household name and a movie villain. Erin Brockovich told the story of a legal clerk who uncovered the poisoning of an entire California town and its water supply by a utility company using hexavalent chromium or chromium 6. The film won plaudits and awards. The utility company paid out hundreds of millions of dollars, and the public recoiled at the idea that a deadly, cancer-causing chemical could sit invisibly in drinking water for years, undisclosed and unaddressed. And yet a generation later, Chromium 6 is still with us, swirling in the air on demolition sites across the globe. Its danger hasn't changed, only the form of exposure has. And just like the residents of Hinckley in California, the workers breathing it in today often have no idea what's happening to them. In the mid-20th century, asbestos was praised as a wonder material, fireproof, durable, and seemingly essential. It wrapped our pipes, lined our buildings, and padded our ceilings. But it also lodged in our lungs, turned healthy cells malignant, and left behind a legacy of death, grief, and litigation that still reverberates through the construction and demolition industries to this day. We learned too late that what once protected us was quietly killing us. And a generation later, we may be repeating the same mistake. This time, the silent killer isn't asbestos, it's chromium 6, a compound just as invisible, just as insidious, and seemingly just as easy to ignore. Now, chromium 6 is a toxic form of the metal chromium, no great surprise, used widely in anti-corrosion paints, cement additives, stainless steel treatments, and industrial coatings. It's found in countless structures built over the past century, bridges, ship hulls, refinery towers, residential buildings alike. And when these structures are demolished, chromium 6 can be released into the air as a fine dust or toxic fumes, particularly when materials are cut, crushed, or pulverized. To the naked eye, it looks like any other demolition dust. But when it's inhaled, it's a potent carcinogen. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies chromium 6 as a Group 1 carcinogen. Exposure is linked to lung cancer, nasal and sinus cancers, kidney and liver damage, and severe skin conditions, including ulceration and allergic dermatitis. And the worst part? Exactly the same as asbestos exposure, it can take years, even decades, for symptoms to emerge, by which time the damage is often irreversible. The parallels with asbestos are hard to ignore. Like asbestos, the dangers of chromium 6 were documented early. Scientific studies warned us of its toxicity back in the 1950s. And as with asbestos, those early warning signs were met with obfuscation, denial, and a general unwillingness to confront the cost of an industrial progress. In the case of asbestos, the human toll became undeniable by the 1980s, leading to widespread bans and regulation, but not before hundreds of thousands had already been exposed. Many workers who were simply doing their jobs found themselves diagnosed with mesothelioma, a disease with no cure and only one known cause: asbestos. And the warning signs are flashing again. But are we paying attention? The longer we delay, the more people are needlessly exposed. And just like with asbestos, the full consequences may not appear until decades later, when lung cancers begin to cluster, when young workers age into patients, when families start asking why no one warned them. And by then, the cost will be measured in lives, lawsuits, and public health crises. We're standing at the same crossroads that we faced with asbestos. The science is very clear, the risk is real, and the moral question is simple. Will we protect workers now or mourn them later? The story of asbestos is one of tragedy compounded by inaction. We ignored early warnings, suppressed evidence, and told ourselves it wasn't urgent, until it was. And today we find ourselves facing exactly the same kind of danger. Chromium 6 is already in the air, already in the dust, already in workers' lungs. But has anyone told you about it? Now, I'm hoping I've got my facts straight, because lurking in our green room is the guy that inspired that. Morning, Marcus.
Morning, Mark. Thank you.
Hey, very, very good of you to join us. I really appreciate you being here, and I love the headset. Did I get my facts straight, first of all?
Yeah, thank you for the good explanation, and thank you for sharing your experiences from Venice. For me, it was also a big, interesting trip, and I was very nervous before my presentation. But later, I said to myself, it was a correct decision to make it loud, because as I just said in the presentation, I'm a little bit the black sheep in the industry, talking about the risks, talking about the consequences, talking about the effects to our body, to the workers. And whenever I see workers in short trousers, in t-shirts, working with insulation, standing in the middle of the dust, I feel so uncomfortable, because I had it with my father. He never touched asbestos, but he died of asbestos because he was only working in a room with asbestos fibers. And now, sorry, we have the same.
So just to be clear, let's go back to the very beginning here. Chromium VI, how does it get into your body? Is it purely through inhaling it, or can it go through your skin? What's the deal there?
We have a massive impact because Chromium VI is a fine dust, so we can inhale it, but we can also get it through our skin. And Chromium VI is acting like a Trojan horse, so to speak, because our body thinks that it's a sulfate or a phosphate. So the doors are open to get Chromium VI in, and then something happens. And maybe, I think nobody knows it exactly. The real killer is Chromium III, because Chromium III is reduced. It's a reduced result of the inner body Chromium VI attack. And then Chromium III is attacking our DNA cells. And the next problem is that nobody will find Chromium III in your blood or in your body if you have cancer. The doctors will say, you are the unlucky one. No one will have an explanation for it.
I think you described Chromium III as kind of a Trojan horse that hides within Chromium VI. Did I remember that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. So if Chromium VI goes into our body tries to reduce it, because Chromium III is a less harmful chromium compound. But during the process, some bad things are happening, and they are destroying our cells. We have oxidative stress inside our body. And the last effect, unfortunately, is the DNA attack of chromium, of the reduced Chromium VI. So Chromium III is attacking our DNA cells, and lung cancer, kidney cancer, abnormalities, and so on. There are a lot of illnesses, but not linked with Chromium VI exposure. Inhaling or dermal, and we should not forget that Chromium VI is also very, very harmful to the environment.
I'm going to go over to the chat. First of all, this one from our friend Peter McKenna. Morning, Peter. The pond we were filling in the northeast when I first passed my dozer test was a chromium pond. I wish I'd known that. And I think that highlights a problem. I mean, up until you started speaking, Marcus, I'd literally never heard of the dangers of Chromium VI. Not once had I heard that. I hear about the dangers and the fallout from asbestos all the time. It's a constant source of conversation. But Chromium VI seems to be tucked away in the background. Why is that?
Chromium VI is more or less an unknown substance, because every Chromium VI compound is artificially formed. So it is a chain reaction between, I said it in my presentation, what if an ingredient of milk as calcium or an ingredient of salt, sodium, comes into contact with chromium under higher temperatures and form something very dangerous. So it's a chemical chain reaction. And all the products we are using in industry also to insulate our building machines. So every building machine with an engine and an existing insulation has a potential to create Chromium VI around the machine. And the latest result is the formation of a so-called chromate, and this could be calcium chromate or sodium chromate, and sodium chromate even is a substance of very high concern. So take care if you have to touch insulated areas, and the industry is of course denying it. We have the same situation we had before with asbestos insulation material. The industry will fight till the end and say, no, it's not our material, it's a coincidence or something like this, but we are really on a high risk.
I'm going to come back to that point in just a moment, but Jim Turner just said it's a massive danger to fitters and welders too. Yes, it absolutely is. Got a couple of comments here from Ferdy, who says, we currently perform around 1,500 Chromium VI analyses with our patented technique every month. From a data set of 5,000 analyses, we find Chromium VI compounds in 42% of applied paint and coating systems, buildings, bridges, sluices, industry, and so on. We even find it on wooden windowsills of normal housing. And he goes on to say, and then Marcus touched a far bigger problem, the formation of these highly carcinogenic Chromium VI compounds in technical insulation. These compounds aren't in paint, but as loose dust, which kind of throws up the other question. Certainly here in the UK, and I'm sure this is fairly widespread, we're taught very early on in the demolition industry specifically how to identify asbestos, what the various forms of asbestos look like. How do you identify the presence of the substance that you're talking about here?
To identify Chromium VI in dust, the first sign is a yellowish dust, but not always. It could be, the fibers if you are uninstalling a former insulated part. We have a lot of fibers there. All the people think that it is normal fiber dust, but inside the dust there is a high content of Chromium VI. And what Ferdy wrote, this is a key fact. To identify it, you need a testing. There are simple testing, so-called quib test, swab tests, but there is a high rate of false negative because the dusts are covering the real Chromium VI load, so you need a better form of analyzing it. And Ferdy's company also developed a mobile lab. We have this mobile lab when we are uninstalling old insulations. Then we take a wipe sample or a material sample. We cook them, and later we have a clear result. And believe me, the dust on the floor, the dust in the machine room, even, and this is no joke, some managers of power plants, they tested their office chairs and also the dust in their offices. The dust is contaminated with Chromium VI, and we bring it home under our shoes. As we brought home asbestos fibers into the families, so many wives of asbestos workers died because they were only washing the clothes of their husbands, and it will be repeated.
Is Sorry, press the wrong button. Is one of the issues here with the testing a cost? Is the cost of testing prohibitive? I mean, we're in a situation now where we have to test for asbestos. We have to carry out asbestos surveys. Should we now be carrying out Chromium VI surveys as well?
In my opinion, every worker having contact with insulated places, on engines, in power plants, should have at first quick tests. This should be a tool of every worker, like a hammer or a screwdriver. And whenever the test turns into purple, the positive rate is more than 99%. But take care, the false negative rate is also more than 50%. But if it turns purple, stop working. You need a fully PPE and inform your safety engineers because dismantling old insulation is not only an inhalative risk for the workers, it's also a big damage to the environment.
You spoke very eloquently at the EDA summit on Friday of last week. Obviously, you're trying to get the message across to the demolition industry across Europe. What is your hope? What would you like to achieve by raising the warning flag on this?
The main goal, the main message is let's accept the risk and let's remember one sentence: chemistry doesn't lie. So it's a chemical proven process happening in the background. Chromium VI is around us, and let's not deny it, and let's not say the little bit of powder. And if here is someone who ever heard the message that yellowish powder under the insulation is sulfur, that this is a false information, and please don't believe what the industry is telling you. If you allow, we also have, wait a second, here we have the Global Asbestos Forum magazine from Dr. Yvonne Waterman. I think she is also in the chat. And here is a letter of the industry. It's with asbestos. And let me tell you one sentence. My answer to the problem is, if you have enjoyed a good life while working with asbestos products, why not die from it? This was the reaction of the asbestos producing industry. And now, not in this clear form, you hear the same, sorry for the word, the same bullshit from the insulation industry, that chromate is creating independent from the insulation material and so on. Let's accept chemistry and let's substitute the risk that history will not repeat itself.
Oh, sorry, press the wrong button again. Peter McKenna just said that's shocking. Dan Cullen saying this is something that needs to be reported. It also says as deadly as asbestos. Marcus, I'm going to let you get back to your day job because I know you've got much more important work to do than sat here speaking to me. But where can people find out more? I mean, obviously, people can see your name on the screen there. I contacted Marcus via LinkedIn, so you can find him there. Do you have a particular website that people can go to that we can point them out for more information?
Yes, there is a website and there's also a so-called compendium. Please Google Chromate experts, and we have a website in German, in Netherlands, and also in English. Google my name and Chromium VI, or simply Google Chromate experts, and you will find the site.
Fantastic. Peter McKenna has just said, thanks, Marcus.
My pleasure.
Dan Cullen says, this is very interesting and show facts people demolish these buildings, no actual concern over their workers' lives. Very true. And Dr. Yvonne Waterman, my new best friend, Chromium VI will become a huge liability issue for employers and insurers. When you consider they've been sitting on their backsides for half a century, you wonder what it will take to force them into preventive action and saving lives. It's a good point. And I know one of the issues that we've had with other forms of demolition-related illnesses and diseases in the past is unless you've been employed by the same company for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, there's always that opportunity to say, well, you didn't get that while you were here. We've had the same with asbestos. We've had exactly the same with hand-arm vibration. It's a challenge with this one as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be more than a challenge because there are new steps in the future. So Chromium VI compounds will be banned more and more. We have still a short time window to react. But I think in a year or maximum in 2 years, some Chromium VI compounds will be completely banned. And then we will have the same situation as we would find an asbestos cord or an old asbestos material, and then we have to work under quarantine. And if this will happen, we will have really costs. I think we are talking about billions.
Well, that should certainly get the industry's attention. The problem is, and I don't know if we've actually reached this point. I remember somebody referring to me as peak asbestos. Obviously, we know when the material was banned, but it's still present in buildings. Exactly the same for Chromium VI. Even if we banned it completely tomorrow, we've got a legacy of, I don't know how many years, decades of buildings that will ultimately fall into the hands of demolition contractors. So that chromium problem will remain for quite some time, won't it?
Yes, you are right. So we just internal, we say it's asbestos 2.0. And we will also meet asbestos and Chromium VI because last year in Brussels, during the asbestos forum conferences, I found an old book about asbestos, and I saw the chemical ingredients of asbestos, and it was all asbestos. Some asbestos materials are also containing calcium and sodium as well. So there could be even a cross reaction that we have asbestos fibers, but also Chromium VI containing dust. And this will be the Armageddon for the industry. So let's act now. There are still substitutes available, but let's protect our lives. Let's protect our colleagues and workers. Don't go with a T-shirt into an engine room. Please don't do it.
Marcus, I was going to say I've enjoyed the conversation. I found the conversation absolutely terrifying, to be perfectly honest with you. But thank you so much for giving up your time today. I really appreciate that. We'll put this recording out, and obviously we'll add links to your website and to you personally as well. And if there's anything we could do, and I'm saying this to you, I'm saying this to Ferdy, to Yvonne as well, if there's anything we can do to help you get the word out, please just let us know. We'll shout it from the rooftops because this is an important issue and people need to be aware.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for being in your show, and enjoy. And if there are questions, contact me, contact Mark or Yvonne, whoever, and let's connect ourselves.
Just before you go, I'm just going to say this one quickly. Lloyd Hope says, well said, Marcus. And Peter McKenna has just said, Chromium VI is used in the production of and use of stainless steel. Yeah, it is, absolutely is. And other chromium alloys in pigments and paint and pottery. Yeah, it is. I'm fairly sure it was Yvonne told me that it's actually used in things like road markings as well, yellow road markings. It's present there. Those are being ground up all the time. So obviously we're talking here specifically about demolition, but it goes way, way wider than that. So be aware, people.
Yes, but there's only one thing. If we are using it, we will also control it. It is not forbidden to use Chromium VI compound under biggest safety assessment and risk assessment, but the Chromium VI dust formed by insulation material is unknown and uncontrollable. This is a big difference. We can use a Chromium VI for some work, but only under control. In the demolition industry or in the insulation industry, it is not controlled, and that's a big difference.
Fantastic. Let's have a look. Ferdy's just said, thanks, Mark, and thank you, Marcus. Yep, thank you, Marcus, indeed. Peter McKenna finishing off, I think, saying it's not just people in construction that will be affected. Dust knows no limits. Dust has a nasty habit of migrating. So, no, it's not just people involved in demolition and construction. Marcus, you get back to your day job. Keep up your good work, sir. Keep spreading the word. Thank you very much indeed for giving up your time. And I shall speak to you again very, very soon. Right. Yeah, I was going to apologise for ending on a serious note, but it is a serious note. That's what it is. I think we're all very, very aware of the dangers of asbestos. You know, we're constantly reminded. We all go through asbestos awareness training. I've done it a long time ago, but I've done it. I know what asbestos looks like, and I know what to avoid. This one, not quite so straightforward, because it's dust. It's not necessarily fibers that you can see. It is dust, as Marcus said. If it is yellowish dust, beware. But I think ultimately this doesn't come down to individual workers. This can come down to the industry. We need to start doing preliminary testing of buildings before we demolish them, and not just testing for asbestos, but testing for other harmful materials as well. And that would certainly be one of them, Chromium VI. If you've seen the film Erin Brockovich, I'm sure you're aware of exactly what the situation is in Hinckley in California. It was a multi-million pound payout because there was Chromium VI in the water there and was causing some very, very severe health issues in California. That's something else now to think of. And what and where, yeah. I mean, as I say, as individual workers, we shouldn't have to worry about it. You know, you would like to think that our lords and masters in the industry are actually going in testing for the presence of these things. But, you know, we're all still aware of the fact that there are surprise findings of asbestos. You know, asbestos surveys have been carried out, and you open a door or open a roof portal, and they're laying out in front of you is a bunch of asbestos covered in dust. Not great. So, people, please be aware. Peter says exposure to chromium may also occur by inhaling cigarette smoke. I didn't know that. As I say, this is literally how it worked, and I will sign off in a second because I don't want to keep you all. I listened to Marcus speaking on Friday afternoon. I packed my bags, jumped on a water taxi, got back to the airport. That's where I got stranded. And while I was stranded, his words were still playing in my head. So I literally sat there on my laptop, did a bit of research, and the more I read about it, the more horrifying it was. I'm aware of what asbestos is. The industry is aware of what asbestos is. I don't think we do a particularly good job of protecting workers from asbestos, but we're not doing a job to protect them from chromium at all. We're not doing that at all, and it needs to change. I would suggest, if anybody from the Institute of Demolition Engineers is listening, I would strongly suggest that you invite Marcus or somebody like him to actually get over to here in the UK at your seminar in September, I think it is, because this is a subject that needs further discussion. I mean, even to the point. I mean, we've had Marcus on. Ferdy is still in the chat, as far as I can tell, and Yvonne Waterman is here as well. I even wonder if it might be worth doing like a dedicated chromate or chromium podcast or live stream one evening. If anybody would like to do that, if anybody would like to watch that, or if you want to take part, please let me know, and we will do our very best to organise this. I think this is one of those stories that's going to keep going. I don't think this is going to go away, and my concern is Well, it's hard to, according to Marcus, it's hard to identify cancers that have been caused by Chromium VI or Chromium III that's kind of hidden within it. We are going to see deaths as a result of exposure to this. Is that when we as an industry start to take note? Do we actually have to stand by and wait for people to die before we actually say, yeah, we probably need to do something about that? Too late, in my opinion. And Dr. Yvonne Waterman says, I'm happy to assist you, Mark, in any such efforts. I knew you would be. 30 says, sure, I'm up for it. And Lloyd hopes, I don't know, Lloyd. Lloyd, I'm going to look you up in a second, but thank you for being here. I'm assuming you are allied to the whole Chromium debate. If you are, I'd love to get you on. Listen, I'd be more than happy to just open the airwaves and let you guys talk about it. Because my research was done in about 45 minutes, sat on the floor of an airport. It's not what you'd call conclusive, I have to say, but you guys live and breathe this, and I use that term advisedly. So if you would like, I mean, Yvonne, we all know what an absolute megastar you are. If you would like to use our platform and even act as the host, I can make that happen. I'll just sit in the background and press the buttons, or I'll host it, and you'll just have to forgive me for not knowing as much as I should. Dan Cullen saying, really interested to hear more from these professionals on this. And Yvonne says, we're seeing such deaths now, just not recognising the origin of it. So the deaths have already started.